Hi everyone, as promised today I'll check out Tapping's newest flagship headphone amplifier slash preamplifier called A900 that goes for $11.99 in the US and €11.99 here locally. I don't want to spoil everything for you right from the start. I will, however, spoil one thing. I have tested plenty of headphone amplifiers by now, and some of which were quite powerful, but this one takes the spot as the most powerful one I have tested so far, delivering up to 22 watts per channel in 16 ohms, and more about that in a minute. I'll try it with a bunch of dynamic and planar headphones, with a few ultra-sensitive IMs, and later on I'll try its preamp section and compare it with the D900. And let's start with the build quality. If you already checked my D900 video, then you know already everything there is to know about the build quality and design, because these two share basically the same case, the same dimensions. It's also a CNC machine from aluminum. The only difference is that the front panel is much busier. We now have several headphone outputs. The best part is that it uses absolutely the same CNC machined aluminum remote control, so you can use this one in a stereo setup pretty easily, or if you want to stay away from your head-fi setup and listen to some music, you can do that as well with this remote control. Checking out its inputs and outputs, as you can see, we have a ton of headphone outputs. More exactly, two 4-pin XLR outputs, two 4.4mm balanced outputs for IMs and whatnot, and then we have two combo headphone jacks that let you connect either two headphones terminated with a regular 1/4-inch headphone jack or a single headphone with dual 3-pin XLR connectors. On its back we have a similar story. We have 3 pairs of combo jacks. You can connect either TRS jacks or regular 3-pin XLR jacks. You can also spot a pair of XLR outputs just in case you want to use it as a dedicated preamp. The USB Type-C connector lets you upgrade its firmware, and there's a pair of 12-volt triggers just in case you want to power all of your hi-fi gear with a single remote control. Its user interface, it's easy to navigate, it's simple and straightforward. You can access all of its functions via the included remote control or by using the touch-sensitive buttons located in between its colorful display and volume wheel. If you fancy an FFT spectrum or VU meter, you can enable either of those two. After browsing through its UI, I found some interesting settings. Besides selecting a low, medium and high gain for either its headphone amp or preamp section, you can also enable or disable a couple of analog inputs and outputs. What's truly interesting is that you can enable all headphone jacks, meaning that you can play music via several headphones at the same time, making headphone comparisons so much easier. Or you can listen together with a friend of yours or maybe watch a movie together. It's up to you to decide. As it was the case with the D900, I was unable to open up the hood of the A900. It seems that Tapping made sure that only their service workers can open up the D900 and A900, so please don't bother. However, from the marketing materials and from the pictures that I found online, it seems that it uses 6 headphone amplifier modules that are made mostly from discrete components. There is also a 3-stage feedback circuit that I didn't see anywhere on any other headphone amplifier, which is something new. I can only presume that on the low gain and low volume there is no feedback at all, and once you move to mid gain, high gain and start cranking up the volume, then the feedback circuit is kicking in and starts removing some unwanted distortion from within the circuit. This technology also lowers the working temperature of the A900, and in several days of testing it was never hot to the touch, even after leaving this one overnight. So if you want, you can use it 24 hours a day and 7 days per week, no problem. These brand new headphone amplifier modules will provide you up to 22 watts per channel in 16 ohms, which is absolutely crazy, it's nuts, and up to 14 watts per channel in 32 ohms, and you can see some basic specs somewhere around here. This is a very powerful headphone amplifier, actually the most powerful I have tested so far, outperforming a single Flagship Acoustics Mentor, which I still love very much. We also have a relay-based volume control. So yes, in a way, this is an R2R volume control. And I'm not sure how many relays have been used per channel, but clearly we have more of them compared to the D900. And that's just natural because this is a preamp and headphone amplifier working just in analog domain, and you need that super precise volume control, and that's exactly what we're getting with the A900. We also have an active preamp stage, and I hate to say it, but it's better compared to that of the D900, but more about that in a minute. I have a lot of things to say about its preamp stage. What's interesting is that we have two separated power supplies. Topping says one for its analog section and one for its digital section, but since this is a full analog headphone amplifier, I can only presume that one power supply is powering its UI, and maybe that feedback circuit, or exactly that CPU or FPGA that is controlling that feedback circuit. So this is a very interesting thing, having two separated power supplies. Usually you can see that in high-end headphone amplifier. So I'm very happy about that. Alright, this is all you need to know about the A900. So let's hit some eardrums and let's check its sound in the usual fashion. Alright everyone, now let's take it step by step and let's discuss about some of the most important aspects a headphone amplifier should deliver: power and control. Rocking up to 22 watts per channel in 16 ohms and 14 watts per channel in 30 ohms. Simply put, there isn't a headphone right now on the market that A900 won't drive fully with lots of auto-oriented bass and lots of control in busy passages. Their former flagship headphone amplifier, the A70 Pro, was also quite a powerful one, and it was already able to drive some super heavy loads like Hifeman Susvara OG, Susvara Unveiled, DCA Stealth and Expanse. The only difference is that A900 does it better. We have more power and therefore more headroom and less distortion, and that is already a very good thing. This amplifier is not struggling so much compared to A70 Pro, and therefore the sound is more effortless. The sound is just more refined, and I'd say it's more natural compared to the A70 Pro. The good part is that regardless of how high I'm raising that volume, there's always tons of headroom remaining. The maximum volume I could reach and I could listen to was 110 dB, and that would equal to around minus 15 dB on the A70 Pro, and it was minus 20 dB on the A900. And if I would use a much hotter sounding DAC that provides a hotter signal like 7.5 volts with that Rockner reference signature, then the headroom would move from 20 dB to around 25 dB on the A900. So clearly that is lots of headroom, and again, I'm discussing about 110 dB volume. If I would normally listen to my normal tunes at the normal volumes, then the headroom would be much higher. So simply put, there isn't a headphone that A900 won't drive pretty easily. The best part is that sometimes I felt with A70 Pro that the basses is a little bit not as punchy, as deep reaching, as having that long sustain, something that is not happening with the A900. So this one is definitely providing a nicer grip over the headphone drivers. There's a little bit more auto-oriented bass, there's more sustain with bass guitars, for example, with piano notes, with organ pipes. All of that energy is not fading away as fast on the A900 like it was the case with A70 Pro. So I'd say that the dynamics are considerably improved on the A900 compared to A70 Pro, and in this regard it easily outperformed even some of the more expensive headphone amplifiers that I have tried around here. For example, the Holo Bliss KTA was unable to fully drive the Hifeman Susvara OG. It was slightly clipping, it was slightly distorting at higher volumes, something that A900 is not doing. I know it's shocking for some of you to tell that the Holo Bliss is not fully driving the Susvara OG, but that's exactly what I said in my original review, and that is exactly what I'm saying right now. It's good, just not extraordinary with the Hifeman Susvara. This is doing a better job, and it's also much more affordable compared to that one. So yeah, I already see lots of value with the A900. The essence of this chapter is a very simple one. If you have several headphones at your disposal, some of them are super hard to drive ones, and you want to use just one single headphone amplifier that will drive all of them, then A900 is a very good amplifier at that. It does a great job, but without adding a coloration of its own, so it lets your headphone system show off its true nature without staying in the way of the music. The second most important part a headphone amplifier should deliver to you is a very low noise floor without any kind of distortion or anything like that, at various volumes, at different gain settings, with some sensitive desktop headphones, maybe with some sensitive IMs, but of course that is much easier said than done, because most of the headphone amplifiers I tried so far cannot provide you an inaudible noise level, especially at high gain. And usually I'm doing that with some sensitive desktop headphones of Meze, of Kennerton, sometimes with some other headphones, but that's better with some ultra sensitive IMs like these that I have right now on the table. So I'm usually starting with the low gain, then I'm moving to mid gain, then to high gain, but this time around it was the other way around. I started with the high gain, and no matter how high I went with the volume, there was simply no noise floor with these IMs, and that was actually a little bit shocking to me. But then I remember that it has a three-stage feedback circuit, and I'm pretty sure that the feedback circuit is doing some mambo jumbo, because both of these IMs were simply dead silent at high gain with this amplifier, which makes me very happy. Lots of you are using IMs as daily drivers, lots of you are using some adapters like IM Match by iFi Audio, but that is no longer needed with the A900 because it's simply dead silent at high gain, and of course medium gain and low gain is performing in a similar fashion. Naturally, everything else, like a pair of sensitive dynamic headphones, will perform in a similar fashion. Overall, this is a fabulous amplifier when it comes to noise rejection. Thirdly, some of you asked how the preamp section of the A900 compared to that of the D900. And this is a very good question, but let me explain to you why A900 is simply a better preamplifier. First of all, A900 provides up to 60 volts peak to peak, and that equals to around 21 volts RMS. By comparison, D900 provides up to 13 volts RMS. And that tells me already one very important thing. With some low power amplifiers like single-ended triode amplifiers that provide you around 3 to 25 watts per channel, or with high bias solid state class A amplifiers that provide you up to 70 watts, with such units the A900 will offer you a higher volume range and a bigger freedom to find the right volume position. Secondly, compared to the D900, this one provides three gain positions: low, medium and high, and those are working with its preamp stage as well. And this is a very big deal, and let me explain to you why once again. For example, right now I'm using some very powerful monoblock amplifiers that provide around 850 watts per channel in 4 ohms. So it's natural that I'm using low gain with the A900 with my Ultima Pre to also low gain, but if you're using some regular power amplifier that provides you somewhere in between 100 and 200, then medium gain will be much better. And of course, with single-ended triode amplifiers or with high bias class A amplifiers, high gain will be a much better fit, something that D900 cannot do, but this one can. So again, it's better as a preamp. Thirdly, we have additional analog relays on the A900, at least twice as much compared to the D900. So clearly we have a more precise volume control, a smoother volume control, and also everything happens in the analog domain. So again, this one is better. And lastly, the active preamp stage found inside the A900 is simply a little bit better compared to that of the D900. The sound is a little smoother, it's more organic, it's pouring a little bit more naturally compared to the D900. And overall, I'd say that the D900 is a great DAC with a good preamp stage, while A900 is a great headphone amplifier and a great preamplifier with little to no compromises. Now let's talk about everything else, such as dynamics, stereo separation and detail retrieval, and let's start with dynamics. And simply put, these are the best dynamics that Topping Audio has ever produced, and that shouldn't be a surprise because we have a ton of power on top and also a separated power supply, something that I don't remember Topping doing before. So of course there's proper slam this time around in the bass. There's plenty of authority and energy in the lowest octaves, and all of that is really nicely controlled, especially if you go super loud with something like Susvara OG or Susvara Unveiled. This is a very good thing. However, don't expect it to surpass the crazy wild dynamic swings of the Barson Audio Soloist Voyager or Ilium AM23R, because that is not going to happen. There is still a market for uber high-end headphone amplifiers that provide you a nicer slam, more energy, and overall just crazier and wilder dynamic swings. However, A900 is no longer lacking cojones and stamina like it was the case with the older designs like A90, like A90 Discrete. Those were fast and snappy, but those were lowering the bass energy once you went a little bit louder. I specifically used only some demanding tunes with this one for a few days, like electronica and rock, and also I used some demanding headphones like Hyphaman Susvara OG, and I went much louder to my usual listening volumes because I wanted to make this one clip and distort, but no matter how hard I tried, the only thing that were clipping and were ringing were actually my ears, because the volume was much higher than usual. And overall the sound was energizing and quite lively, even if the feedback circuit was kicking in full force. It was always keeping up with fast-paced music, and I'd say that we're dealing with a 10 out of 10 amplifier when it comes to fast transients, and an 8 out of 10 when it comes to bass slam and dynamics in general. The stereo separation is again a pretty nice improvement versus their A70 Pro, A90, A90 Discrete, even compared to their DX9 limited edition. This one is slightly more holographic and more 3D sounding, especially when connected to that D900 DAC. This duo knows how to untangle the music, and even crowded music wasn't a train wreck anymore, nicely decompressing the music and gently separating the sounds from each other. Of course, you can get some airier sounding tube headphone amplifiers, but when it comes to solid states, I believe this is at the very top, and you no longer need to spend a fortune for a very good stereo separation and these 3D effects. Detail retrieval I left for last because it's simply outstanding. We have a measured dynamic range of 151 dB and also a channel crosstalk distortion of minus 153 dB. So please stop for a moment and think about these numbers, because 10 years ago a dynamic range of 120 dB in an amplifier was simply outstanding, but 150 dB is like an amplifier coming from the future, from a science fiction movie. Sincerely, I'm not sure I can differentiate a dynamic range of 120 dB from 150 dB, but sincerely, this is as good as it can get in terms of sheer resolution, and I don't think you can do better than this. Wrapping up, there are two little things that I disliked about the A900. First of all, once you go louder on that high gain, the feedback circuit is kicking in a little bit harder, and of course it starts removing some distortion from within the circuit, and while that is a very good thing, it also removes a little bit of soul, a little bit of organic matter from your music. So once you go louder, especially on high gain, it slowly becomes less organic and less musical and less smooth. It's not a big change, but clearly you can feel that something is changing in terms of how natural everything is flowing. So I don't recommend going super loud on this amplifier. You can stay on mid gain easily with most planar headphones, or maybe even low gain with most planar headphones. That wouldn't be a problem. This is where it will sound most organic and most natural, and I would stay away from super high volumes on high gain. And the other nitpick I have is that This one is not exactly sweet sounding, so it's not coloring the sound in any way, and I'm sure for many of you this is actually a plus, not a minus. But if you expected to add some additional texture, to put some more meat on the bone, maybe to bump the mid-bass a little bit or add a little bit of energy in the mid-range like a tube amplifier is doing, this one is not doing any of that. So this is a neutral, very honest sounding headphone amplifier without adding any kind of coloration. So this is my second nitpick, but it could be a huge plus for you. However, when it comes to sheer power output, control, noise floor and the rest of the technicalities, this is a true headbanger. It was easily driving my entire headphone collection without breaking a sweat. And let's not forget that active preamplifier stage that provides you up to 21 volts RMS, and it has free gain settings that works so well with both high powered and low powered amplifiers. So there's a lot to like about the A900 and very little to nitpick, but I let you decide if this is the right choice for you. And if you need a complementary DAC for the A900, then I cannot recommend you enough the D900 that I've used for about 1.5 weeks with this one as a stack. Before you go, you can also check my topping D900 DAC review, I left it below. Also consider liking, disliking, maybe subscribing to this channel if you found this video helpful, and I'll see you soon with a couple headphone reviews. See you soon, cheers!